Well, hey, I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Tyler, and I get to serve on staff at the Ridge. And I'm just invited a really good friend of mine named Mark, who I got to know over the last year. I was advised to connect with Mark and actually pursue and maintain some health. To be honest, I'm a pastor at a church, and so I came into contact with Mark as a spiritual coach. But in my time with Mark, I realized he focuses so much more on just spiritual health, but an overall emotional, mental, physical health as well. And so we thought the wisdom he has might be helpful for anyone who's tuning in today. So Mark, hey, thank you so much for joining us. How have you seen 2020 impact the overall health of Americans? I mean, we know there's been a lot of obstacles and challenges. What have you seen in your conversations?
And what I observe both in me and in the churches is that we are in a time of really being off balance, feeling out of kilter, not quite being ourselves. And one person described it to me as, we're all left-handed and we're learning to write right-handed, or we're right-handed learning to write left-handed. And then it even gets worse, because not only do we feel like we had to learn something new, we've had to learn it, maybe learning how to write now with our left foot. And these things that are changing around us are calling forth from us things that we are really new to us. And so we feel off kilter, off balance quite a bit. And so that off balance is raising our level of anxiety, raising our level of can we continue to respond and cope well in these times that are changing.
What are 1 to 2 things that you would recommend to achieve or maybe maintain overall health in such a time of instability when we're trying to walk on the one foot or write with our opposite hand?
Yeah, I think that's what we're all trying to figure out. If there's any hope sometimes that we have, is that as uncomfortable and as this is for us, it's not new to the human experience throughout history to have things in the external world challenging us and causing us to be uncomfortable, even to suffer. I think one of the first things that I would say, though, Tyler, about this is to recognize that I think it's natural to want to be through this, to be on the other side of this. And there's again, that's natural, but I think there's also a danger in that. And that danger in that is it can rob us from being present today and present to that work of God in us, that work of change. And so to be in that place of saying, I want to be through this, I want to be on the other side, or to want things to go back to normal, is to miss what is the work of God right now going on in your life. What are the invitations that are being extended to us in this time? So to be present is really to be present with our whole self right now in what's going on. And then learning to be in that space of, okay, what is the call from God to me to cooperate in my changing? And for many of us to be in that place of asking that question, it often means, can I let go of some things and take hold of other things? And in letting go, I find God. I find that work of God in me growing. So that's the first thing, is kind of letting go of that emotional or that mental picture of saying, I just want to be through this. Right. And then being in that space of saying, can I be present here right now in this moment with my whole self before God and cooperate with that work?
No, that's really good. And just that idea of, hey, just don't hold on and hold on. There is going to be a letting go aspect of that.
Yeah. Well, for all of us, to recognize, I think, because I work so much with churches, that a lot of changes have gone on in churches right now. And for the congregation, the things that they have relied upon to support them and to help them to grow in their spiritual life, all those have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And are there invitations in that rather than just experiencing loss?
Mm-hmm.
So the loss of them is also an invitation to say, what are the things that I need to now learn to do because of this in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be, I think, a wonderful invitation from God. So that's just one, is I think just wanting to let go of being on the other side of this, and learning to be present to it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Is there anything personally in your life that you'd be willing to share that you've experienced this?
Yeah. I think a lot of times when I'm in a place of discomfort or even, I want to say, pain and suffering, you cannot look at the news and not recognize how people are suffering all over the world because of the pandemic. So part of what I do in my own life is to be present to that and not to push that away, to find a sense of compassion for those who are suffering and allow that to grow in me, not necessarily a critical or a judgment, but to be present with people in that suffering. And that for me is a spiritual exercise, to allow myself to be in that place of saying, what does it mean to move towards this with compassion rather than just simply trying to get out of it or be angry at it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a couple things that I do. One of the things that also marks as a spiritual exercise for me is learning to practice being thankful. The Psalms are loaded. I think there's over almost 30 to 35 different Psalms of thanksgiving, that call to give thanks. And there is a giving thanks that we do with our words, but there's also a posture of holding thankfulness that can mark our lives. And so as a part of my own spiritual practices and disciplines of learning to hold thankfulness in my life. And so I will often do that with a place of prayer, of quieting myself and just holding the things that I'm thankful for, both personally and in the world around me. Great, beautiful design of our Creator God is that when we hold thankfulness, even for 30 seconds, it releases serotonin into our body. And I love this design because one of the great agents that help us to both calm and even to heal some of the broken places is the use of serotonin flowing through our body. So to me, that just marks of a wonderful design, but that's a simple practice that we can, in the midst of this chaotic world, take some time to be still and hold thankfulness within our hearts.
Yeah, I've experienced the benefits of that over the last several months of just even, a friend told me about this app called Happy Feed, which we'll link to it below in the description there. But it notifies you like, hey, put in your things. So it takes 30 seconds to write down some of the simple things you're thankful for. And what's then great is then later in the day, if you do this for ongoing time, you're reminded in notifications like, hey, here's what you were thankful for 6 months ago. And so the fun little pictures of my kid pops up, just almost in that right time. It's like, okay. And you're right, that 30 seconds of pausing and gratitude, at least it feels like that fuel to go through the next. That's great.
Yeah. And let that grow in your life, to move from holding it 30 seconds to allowing yourself to hold it for a minute, and then even to expand that will have benefits in your life. Tremendous benefits, I think.
Yeah, and I think what it pushes you to do is to find the moments, because there are moments to be grateful for, even in the midst of such a challenging time. So
it is.
That's really good,
yeah.
Mark.
And sometimes we lose contact with that. The anxiety of the moment is so great. We often think about what we can do, And sometimes the speed of our doing just continues to add to our anxiety. And so again, that practice of prayer, of a prayer posture of being still before God, is it really a means by which we can learn to slow down and even relieve those things that cause us anxiety.
So what I'm hearing is just even if I'm not even necessarily a follower of Jesus, or if I would call myself skeptical at first, just even the act of slowing down and pausing.
Yes.
Yeah. Because and obviously for those of us who are following Jesus, there's more purpose in that moment of like, hey, I want to pursue Jesus, but just the physical act of slowing down, we see overall health benefits.
There is. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I often tell people to learn to be aware of when you go through your day is the speed at which you move from A to B, whatever A to B is. And to be aware of that, oftentimes we move with kind of lightning speed, doing A to get to B, to get to C, to get to D. And again, the danger of that is that it can rob us of being wholly present to what's going on right now in front of us. And so to learn to be present to that work of God's Spirit is then to learn to both cooperate with that and then give from that, to give from that to others, which you received. And it's as simple as slowing down the movement.
Because how fast we're going can limit how present we are in that moment. Yeah.
Well, just pay attention to that just for a little bit. When you find yourself needing to get to someplace else, what's going on internally? Most of the time, we like the energy that brings to have to be at something, but sometimes that energy leads to exhaustion and to feeling anxious, like I didn't get enough done. Learning to slow down allows us then to be fully present in this moment. And I think give of our whole selves, not just kind of our quick thinking, our reflective space. We give from emotionally healthy space because we're not angry, we're not frustrated, we've slowed down the pace.
Yeah, and it's almost as if we're not carrying the emotions from that previous event into the next event. We've slowed it down enough to be fully present there.
Yeah, and just even what you said there is remarkable. Can I be still enough to be able to say I'm carrying that emotion, whatever it is, from one to the next one, and can I, by slowing down the pace, let go of that? I'm really angry at this person, this conversation that I had. Can I move the speed at which I move on to something next by letting go of that so that I can be, again, wholly present with someone else?
Yeah, that's really good. Well, Mark, we're out of time, and I want to respect your time, but thank you so much for just sharing these great nuggets of wisdom. I mean, this is really, really helpful, and I hope this is helpful for anyone who's tuning in, just to say, okay, here's how I can achieve and maintain health in a time of instability. I love the image of riding with the different hand, the opposite hand. We're walking on one foot. I mean, off balance. I think it's a great word picture of describing the last few months. So, Mark, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and thank you for our friendship. I mean, you've been a gift for me personally the last several months.
Well, thank you, Tyler, for inviting me to be a part of this, and I hope there's some value that people can find in our discussion.
I believe there is. Have a great day. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.